Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's episode, I'm joined by Todd Ainsworth, shop owner, industry leader, and somebody that I've had the pleasure to get to know through the Northwest Auto Care Alliance. Todd has a real passion for this industry and especially for helping develop the next generation of technicians. We spend a lot of time in today's conversation talking about leadership, mentoring young technicians, and the responsibilities shop owners have in creating strong cultures and career paths inside their businesses. We also get into Todd's involvement with NWACA and why being connected within the industry can make such a big impact. Let's get into it. How are you guys?
I'm good. I was in New Orleans last week, so I've got a fresh perspective this week.
Probably a fresh perspective on life. That New Orleans trip can always change some things for you.
Yeah.
Well, good. As we're going into this, we've got two different guests here today, so we're going to dive into both of their backgrounds. Todd, let's start with you. Give us a little bit of your background. How did you get into this industry? What is it that you do now? And this will kind of set the stage for everything we're going to talk about today.
Well, I started tinkering on things mechanical at a young age, and was always interested in tools and how things worked. So I also loved cars. So it was a logical progression. By the time I got old enough to get into auto shop in high school, I did. And I stayed in auto shop class as long as I could in high school and got a car. And then by the time I got out of high school, I went to work full-time at a shop and did an apprenticeship at night for 4 years. And I was a professional tech for 25 years after that, and then became a shop owner. And I've been a shop owner for 15 plus years. During that time, I've been able to use some time to get heavily involved with the schools in my area, education. I'm a board member with Northwest Auto Care Alliance, and my goal is to help change the industry by the time it's time for me to retire.
Well, and you've already done so much for the industry. Talk to me a little bit about your early days getting into the industry. I mean, that's going to be the topic of conversation as we go today, but I always think it's nice to kind of take that perspective or think back to when we were in that kind of young person seat coming into the industry and really kind of understanding maybe how it was then versus how it is now, and maybe similarities, maybe things that are different. But how was it when you were coming up?
Well, this is the mid 80s then, what we're talking about then. It was much different than it is now. Things were a little looser, and you got away with a lot more back in those days. But there was, every high school had an auto shop, and it was more widely accepted. I think there was a lot more people in the industry. Like I said, I got to work full time right after high school, and I feel pretty lucky that I wound up where I did. It was a small, single location, family owned shop, very, very small staff. And I had a mentor that, although he could be tough on me, he taught me a whole lot. And I owe a lot to him in my formative years there, because I started working when I was 17. And so I learned a whole lot about not just working on cars, but actually working in a shop and life in general from him. So I feel really lucky about that. And I moved on to a larger but still family owned shop after that. And that started my trajectory, and I specialized in engine performance and emissions and diagnosis and electrical stuff.
Yeah. What's funny to me when you're talking through that is that even back then mentorship was big, right? Maybe we didn't glorify it as much as we do now or talk about it as much. And if it's anything like mine, it sounds maybe a little bit like some of my mentors, where they probably didn't consider themselves mentors. They were just trying to take the young kid under their arm, right? And I think so much of that is impactful for that young person coming up. Like, as somebody like you that's made a living out of this for a long time now, the importance of having that person to kind of guide you at that early stage, and the right person to guide you at that stage. You have to feel lucky you got the right person, because that can really go a wrong direction if you get the wrong person.
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of times during the time, there's a lot of times that I didn't think he was the right person because of his mentorship style, shall we say. I will keep this a family show. But looking back on it, though, I realize people have their own teaching styles, and I appreciate him for what he was able to give me.
Now, how after that? I mean, your career evolves. What brought you into shop ownership?
Well, after 25 years, the physical toll was starting to take effect. I needed multiple shoulder surgeries. Other things were going on, and I was just kind of at a crossroads. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. That if I still wanted to just be in the shop, I had a passion for the industry, and I wasn't able to make an impact on the industry or anything just working in the shop. I guess you could say the only way I was going to be able to make any sort of changes was to have some authority, and the only way to do that was to become a shop owner. And so it wasn't what I planned on doing early in my career. People ask me all the time, when are you going to open your own place? When, why are you still working for somebody? I never even thought I would be. I was like, I don't want that headache. I don't want to do that. Why would I see what these guys go through. I mean, why would I want that kind of stress? But lo and behold, here I am.
Well, and talk to me about that transition a little bit, right? Because that transition from wrenching in the shop to going to the front office isn't as smooth as it sounds, right? Like there's a lot to learn. It's a different type of job altogether. Granted, the foundation that you build doing the technical side of things really, really does help once you're up in that seat. But there's so much to learn on top of that, right? Like once you get up there oftentimes is that struggle to adapt to a new role. It can be much harder on a person if they are naturally skilled at being a technician to go to the front. Did you see any challenge in that, or was it kind of a seamless transition?
No, huge challenge. So, as technicians, we like the challenge, right? We like figuring the problems out. We like fixing things. So I had to look at this like a new set of challenges. So it was just a different way to apply your skills. I'm not a natural salesman. I had very little experience doing any work up at the counter, only for a few months while I was recovering from shoulder surgery because I couldn't work. So I started helping out at the counter. Very limited experience there. And when we decided to strike out and open a shop, the first thing I did was contact and join ASA Northwest, which is where NWACA came from at the time, because all the shops I worked at had all been members of ASA. And I knew that there was something that we needed help. I needed guidance, and I'm so glad that I found that group as well, because they provided a lot of the mentorship from the ownership side.
Yeah. And that's important too, right? Same thing as the technical side, getting those mentors that are going to kind of help you in some of those tough times, maybe give you advice of things that maybe they went through. The guidance of that membership in general is absolutely huge.
Yeah. And all of us want to help other people not make the same mistakes that we did, because if you don't, they're going to be repeated over and over and over again. And so once you learn that you need help and then you have help available, all you got to do is accept it and actually put it into practice. And I think that's what's led to being able to succeed.
Did you find that part humbling? Because when you think about it, you go from something you are really, really, really good at to something that you've got to kind of figure your way back out again, right? And it's almost kind of reinventing yourself as a person. Was it humbling going through that experience?
Yeah, I would say so, because as a tech, I had a pretty big ego, and I can't say that I don't still have one, but you've got to learn to humble yourself. You got to learn to let a little of that go, and realize that you don't know as much as you need to know, or that you don't know as much as you thought you did, and that there are other people smarter than you and they have something to offer you. So realizing that you can't do the things that you did before and that you need to become somebody new is a humbling experience.
Yeah, it is. And I give anybody credit that goes through that experience. And I will say you must have had kind of that vision to want more help though, right? So if you're back then signing up for excuse me, for an organization like ASA, I remember growing up in a shop, I would see the sticker on the door and I didn't know what it meant, right? Like I just saw the logo and it was something that always stuck out to me. But when you do look at something like that and joining an association, once you get in that chair, the amount of guidance and just coaching, and not necessarily coaching, that education side and learning and kind of all the value that comes out of that, I think is amazing, especially for a new shop. And then the resources that it comes with. It just that it, not to make it a sales pitch for NWACA, but there are some incredible people within NWACA and just the other shops and the people that are actually a part of the association, the just everything that you can kind of surround yourself. They always talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. Well, that's kind of the reason to do something like that, right?
Exactly that. When you just start looking at the success that those owners have had and look at the shops that they own, look at the quality of the people that they have, and you realize that that is the part of the industry that I need to be in. I don't have a dirt floor. I'm not wearing coveralls. I want to be professional. We have an industry that has long suffered from an identity crisis because we just don't value ourselves, I feel, as much as we should. It's getting better.
It is.
But I mean, I've been in this industry for over 40 years now, and I can say that we were a victim of our own selves, and we need to, act the way that we want to be treated, and that's with respect and professionalism. And I see all the other members of NWACA have great shops, great reputations, great amount of respect, and I know that that's the organization that I need to be part of.
Oh, what you just said there, I think carries so much weight in that. I say this to Tex all the time, and I think it's really smart on your part to say the same, which is if we want all of that stuff, we want the respect, we want the pay, we want all of this, we have to act in a manner that is attracting that, right? And so often I think we get set in some of what was kind of put in place for us, right? And I kind of refer back to the fact that it wasn't that long ago that labor rates were $35 an hour, right? Like it seems like forever ago, and in a way it is. But when you think about that time where it was 30, I'm actually curious, what was the labor rate when you first came into the industry in the mid 80s? Do you recall?
I gotta say, if I recall right, I think it was 55.
Yeah. Yeah. And so fast forward to now, say you're 40 years ahead,
Right.
we're significantly higher than that. I hope there's still some that are teetering on that. And I'm like, guys, come on, what are you doing? We need to get that labor rate in line. But the reason why is because that is what drives the professionalism, right? If you're not making money as a shop, you're not able to invest in the nice scope. You're not able to invest in the facilities that you need to kind of drive that, that brand and that awareness of who we are as an industry. You're not able to pay your people. And at the end of the day, this stuff has gotten extremely difficult to work on. And when you were coming in, fuel injection was all the rage, right? And you're kind of transitioning from carburetor to fuel injection. And now, I mean, we're driving advanced computers. Like there's so much that has changed in that period of time. Yet there's still a lot that don't value themselves enough, right? They're not putting enough value on what they do because in some ways it's probably second nature to them. They've done it their entire lives. They've been pretty good at it their entire lives. And maybe they don't think other people value that as much. And I'm here to say, like, guys, you got to start valuing your stuff and have confidence in being able to charge appropriately.
Right. You have a we have a skill set that is in high demand and should not be given away.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
one of the most frustrating things that is so common is that people in general, the public in general, they'll look at you and say, "Hey, look at you! You are an expert in your field. You are so good at what you do that I know that you'll be able to fix my car in less time. Therefore, you don't have to charge me as much because you're so good. You'll be so fast at it. It won't take you as much time." That is absolutely backwards.
It
No.
is. It is. I couldn't agree more. And I think that is the core of a lot of our issues in the industry, right? And is just not charging appropriately. And so much of that is really, I think, the cause of a lot of our problems as a whole.
Liking this episode? Join WrenchWay in the Northwest Automotive Careers Association for an upcoming webinar bringing together ITAC and ASE Connects to talk about the tools and programs already available in the Northwest to help build the next generation of technicians. You'll hear how NWACA supports independent shops through training and advocacy, how ITAC's registered apprenticeship program creates a real paid pathway from classroom to career, and how shops and schools can connect through ASE Connects to start building relationships that strengthen your pipeline. The webinar is Wednesday, June 3rd at 3:30 Pacific Time. Whether you can make it live or not, register anyway. We'll send you the recording. Register now at wrenchway.com/events or follow the link in the show notes.
All right. So, Todd, as we're talking about profitability for shops and kind of the impact that that has on developing techs, and maybe not even just developing techs, like retaining techs, finding techs, and being able to staff your shop adequately, doesn't that feel like a huge opportunity for us to get better as an industry? Like if we're working to charge appropriately and pay, at market or maybe even above market to attract that really, really good talent, doesn't that feel like maybe some low hanging fruit of things that we can do as a shop?
Yeah, well, you touched on it earlier, just a little bit ago, and you said that if you're not profitable, you're not going to be able to invest in the equipment. You're not going to buy the scopes. You're not going to be able to retain the talent or attract the talent, right? So, us being, most shop owners are technicians turned shop owner. I think that's a common pathway, and are also far too common that techs aren't necessarily good business owners.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Anyway, because that wasn't our thing. We learned to be techs. We got good at what we did. It's time to open a shop. You don't know how to read a P&L. You don't know what your profit should be. You don't know what you should be able to afford. What's your marketing budget? I don't know. I've never done that before. But if you're not profitable, you're not going to achieve any of it. If you don't make enough money, you're not going to be able to pay the people that you want to work for you because they are going to command a higher price because there is a shortage of talent. And that's, one of the things that we're working to try to correct is getting more talented people into the industry. But considering the competition that we have with other industries, we need to be able to pay them to even get into the industry. So we need to be profitable to attract the talent and keep the talent you already have. And that's going to include also annual stuff like training. I mean, how much money do we need to spend not only on tools and equipment, but training to keep them up to speed? Because like you said, the technology has just leapfrogged. Every 10 years, it seems like we're in a whole new world in the automotive industry. We saw the leaps in the past from manual transmissions to automatics, and from drum brakes to disc brakes, and from points and condenser to electronic ignition, and on through computer controls and fuel injection. But now they're just computers that happen to have cars, that happen to have wheels on them.
Yeah.
And so it's super technical. We need smart people. The image that a lot of people may have of the grease monkey with a dirty rag hanging out of the back pocket, it's not reality anymore.
It's not.
We're looking at CAN bus network problems and very technical things. So unless we work to change that image, people are still going to think that we're knuckle draggers. But we need to pay them a whole lot of money to drag those knuckles now.
Well, it's interesting to me. One of the things that I'll pick out of what you just said there is really our fight against other industries for young talent coming in. And I do think this is something that we're going to start talking a lot about, because traditionally we've always talked about how, schools have really pointed students in the 4-year school direction. But now you're starting to see a shift in money. Somebody had forwarded me a text of a press release from BlackRock that they were donating $100 million into technical education. And at first I was like, you know what, that's really, really cool. And then I started reading it more. And the only thing I thought to myself is, of course they are. They need electricians and plumbers to be able to build these data centers. And they need a lot of them. And the problem that I've got with that now is we were already, as an industry, maybe behind those industries in terms of pay. I think at least that's the perception in a lot of ways, where, that electrician that's out there isn't having to buy a ton of tools and is making really good money. And that's about to explode. Like, they're about to get more and more as that demand goes. Same with plumbers. You're starting to see more and more of that. Now, of course, they all have fleets. They all have their repair needs for vehicles. But it's really hard, because I'd love to see what their labor rates are traditionally, right? For that electrician, that plumber that's out there, because it wouldn't make us feel so bad about what we're charging customers, I think, right? Like I've got buddies that own both kinds of companies, and they'll still they'll tell me what they charge, and it's mind blowing, right? Because it is on the job, and they, are traveling out to your home or wherever you're going, if it's a new construction, but they don't have a problem charging. We seem to have that problem, but we're going to have to fix that real quick if we're going to compete with them on young talent.
Yeah, because no, exactly what you said. They don't feel bad about charging what they charge for labor, because people need them and people can't do it themselves. And that's another thing about this common misperception about our industry is somehow, some ways, people think that working on cars is easy still.
Yeah.
And they think that you can do it yourself, or you can get the guy down the street to come, hey, I'm going to give you a 6-pack. Would you come help me work on my car? Yeah. No, we can't be afraid, and we need to have pride in what we're doing, and we need to know that that's valuable. People can't do it. They can't do it on their own. They need us, and we shouldn't be ashamed that we're skilled, that we've put all this time and effort and investment into buying tools and attending training and busting our knuckles and burning our fingers on exhaust manifolds, and all the time that we've spent gaining the skills that we have is worth a lot. It's worth something.
I don't know if you have any stories around it, but I've got a quick one to share from my family's shop. And this happened probably 6 months ago, but I stopped down by the shop and I was talking with the team, just kind of seeing how things were going. And one of the guys in the shop calls me over. He goes, "Jay, check this out." This lady brings her car in and they put it on the hoist, and she said, "It's got this really, really bad vibration and it's not running well." So they put the car up on the hoist. The ball joint was completely out of the lower control arm, like completely fell out, and it looked brand new. And so they go back up to the front and say, "Well, ma'am, did somebody recently work on this car?" And she said, "Well, yeah, my son just put ball joints in it." And this lady had driven like 15 miles to get to our shop. And you're just like at probably 65 miles an hour with a lower ball joint that is not, I mean, just not even connected and, or barely connected. And it just reminded me, we talk about all the complex stuff in our industry, something as simple as a ball joint where, we've all done them a million times, but then the general consumer thinks that they can do that job and could have potentially killed his mother, right? Like that's no joke. He sent her down the road to our place when that thing, there's no way that should have been on the road. And I just think about all those stories over the years where you're like, I wish we did a better job at explaining that to the end user customer, right? Like we're not trying to pull one over you. We're trying to help keep you safe. We're trying to make sure your vehicle is reliable. That's why we do inspections. It's all of this stuff where you're like, man, I wish we didn't have to fight this perception at times that it's easy and that we're trying to pull one over on people. You're like, no, this is hard stuff to do. And you're putting yourself at pretty major risk if you try it on your own.
Yeah. Well, this is the same perception that we fought ever since I entered this industry. I mean, we've been fighting this the whole time. And it's a great point to bring up about the ball joint story, because another thing that comes with shop ownership and needing to be profitable is you need to hire the people who will take the time to do it right, of course. But we have a liability.
Oh,
when we take the car into our shop, we're accepting liability, and we literally sometimes have people's lives in our hands. Every time you take a wheel off or put a ball joint in, now that is your liability. We have to provide safety for our clients, and they don't need to think about whether their car is going to fall apart. That's going to be our job. But it's not any laughing matter when we talk about safety, because as we are responsible for our clients' safety, and somebody doing a poor job of installing a ball joint, you're right. That's somebody's life could be in danger there, and we are guaranteeing that's not going to happen when you bring it to us, right? All of us need to be doing that, right? Whether you charge enough or not, you are doing it.
Yeah, whether you like to or not, if something happens, they're going to look for who last touched that car.
Exactly.
And I think that's going to get even worse with ADAS, right? Where if there are more of these collisions and maybe you didn't properly do that calibration, or, something, even just writing, right? When we're talking about writing work orders and the need to have good, polished and clean work orders to document everything that we did, because if something bad does happen, and unfortunately we live in the day and age where you kind of have to live in that kind of mindset where you got to protect yourself, it's just the technology and the advances in it, I think, are going to make that side even more complicated.
Yeah. Which is another way to come back on the professionalism that we need to exhibit. It's just got to come from the front at the counter. It's got to come from the techs themselves. It's got to come from the image of the business and just the way that we run all aspects of the business. We need to present ourselves as professionals and act like it at the same time.
Which sounds like a lot, right? Because when we talk about this technician shortage that we've all been battling for decades at this point, it's just been a lot worse in this decade. What we're finding is that it's going to require more smart people, right? And it can't just be anybody coming into this industry. And I kind of want to shift this to talking about how do we find those young people? How do we raise them to be professionals? How do we get structure around them so that when they do get in the shop, that they're not on an island, and that they're getting the training that they need, and that they're doing the things they need? Because I just look at that 18-year-old that's out there right now and how much cars are going to change in their life, right? If you look at 40 years from now, like how different is their life going to look? And it's just wild to think about. They're going to probably go through more change than any of us have up until this point. How do you think we start to get better there, right? Like, and I know this is a really, really vague question that I'm asking, but when we look at maybe some of the struggles we've had as an industry, it's on the retention side, it's on the recruiting side, and the development side of trying to get this up and coming crowd into our shops, and not only into our shops but thriving, right? We want them to come in, be productive, and really be good employees. Where do you think we missed the ball at there?
Well, unfortunately, I think we missed the ball because we're too busy being busy.
Mm.
We're too busy trying to solve what's going to happen right now. We don't have time to think about tomorrow. And a lot of that comes with the way that you run the business in the first place. Depending on the size of the shop or the experience of you as an owner, you may have so many fires to put out right in front of you that you can't think down the road or take time out for yourself. You just can't wait for the end of the day till you can just go home and just, kick your feet up. But when I came into the industry right out of high school, I'd already tested for and applied for the GM training center in Tigard, Oregon. And that was my plan. I was going to move to Portland. I was going to go to Tigard. I was going to become a GM tech, right? In the meantime, I got a job at a local shop near the high school that I was going to. And I figured that was going to be, my first job, a summer job. I'd worked at a gas station and stuff before, but my first, mechanic job. And so I worked there during the summer, and then there was delays in getting that GM program off the ground, so I continued to work there. And when I decided that I was just going to continue to work there, at the time we still had union representation in our area for independent techs. So I joined the union, and the union had a sponsored apprenticeship program. It was called machinists, right? But
okay.
But so I went to school at night for 4 years, along with working full time. And at the college that I was going to take these night classes, all the night classes were taught by industry members. And so there was a Ford class, and it was taught by a guy who worked during the day at Ford, and he was volunteering. Well, he was getting paid, I'm sure, but he was teaching his knowledge at night to us. And same with GM and another guy who did electrical and HVAC, and a fuel injection class by a guy who was part of the Bosch team that developed fuel injection in the first place.
Yeah.
And just all these people that taught us. And I saw that they're industry members giving back to the industry in teaching young people at that time. That stuck with me. And I think that's probably informed my decisions over the years to try to keep that in mind and also give back and do what I can to mentor young people and be involved in the apprenticeship program now that NWACA has created, which is called ITAC. And I think it's the passion that we individually need to have for the industry and our willingness to give some of our time and investment back to it for the young people to see that we are willing to invest in them. Mm. And if we as shop owners don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that, I think we're going to continue to spin our wheels a little bit. It's going to take the willingness to put the time in, and it's going to take a little pain to watch them struggle and not expect too much out of them. But if you do that and we show them that we value them and that we're willing to invest in them, I know that they will appreciate it, and they will have some loyalty, and they will see that you are willing to take a chance on them, and they're going to pay it back.
So I think that part is the pay it back part, I think, tells you everything you need to know about this industry, right? There's so many of great industry folks that have that almost need to give back because the industry's been so great to so many. And you wouldn't find that if the industry wasn't great, right? Like there's a lot of people that want to help and they want to move the industry in the right direction. And I think that speaks volumes about the industry as a whole. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But there are a lot of really passionate people about this industry and people that do want to give back like you. And I want to ask you about that apprenticeship program from NWACA, because I want to dive into what makes an apprenticeship effective. Like what is it that when you look at an apprenticeship that makes it like the execution of it work?
It hinges on the shop and the shop owner willing to make that investment in that young person or in that apprentice. They need to provide the mentorship, and that's usually going to be one of the technicians that's in the shop. They need to figure out how to incentivize that mentor to do that. That means you can't expect them to start making less just because they have the privilege of teaching somebody, right? So how do we incentivize everybody to participate? Because if it's not a win-win for everybody, then the participation is going to lag. But the success hinges on that whole thing, on how much passion and investment the shop owner is willing to make, and how much everybody else, how much the mentor is going to embrace that role. And I think that we all, as expert techs, should embrace that role, because somebody taught us, and we've spent a lifetime gaining this skill. What better way to complete your career than to give that knowledge on to the next generation? And so we need to make sure that people want to do that.
I agree. And I think there are a lot of people that want to do it even when they say they don't want to do it, right? I've got friends of mine that are probably pretty close to retirement as technicians that, like, I'm not a mentor. And then you'll see them in the shop, like working with a young person and helping them out. And, hey, I do it this way. Just, it'll save you a little bit of time if you move, this piece over here. And I think some people don't want the title of it, right? They don't want to be like kind of the fancy mentor word. But then there's also kind of the side of it where there's some people that probably shouldn't be mentors, right? Like that just aren't going to be good teachers or have patience with a young person. I know one thing I get really worried about with mentors in general is something that you see online, and that is somebody saying, don't come work here. Don't come to this industry. Don't do this. It's hard on your body. It's a hard job overall. And some of those people, maybe, and some of it could be down to what you were saying, the shop itself, right? There are still some bad shops out there. There are still some shops that don't treat their people well. There's some shops that aren't doing it for the right reasons. But when you find those good ones, and you find the ones that have those teacher type mentality folks in them, and you tie something like your apprenticeship program to that, it's magic. It works. Like it's not rocket science. Like you have to get the right people involved. You have to have structure around it. And the more you do that, and some level of accountability, right, to each other, and that you're doing this in the best interest of that young person coming into the shop, the more you can do that, the more you're going to have good employable human beings working for you, right? Where you raise them on the way you want to be raised. You put them down a path that's going to help. But I think you and I have talked about this before, where my frustration with our industry, this isn't independent, this isn't dealer, this is kind of everybody, where I get really frustrated with the lack of patience we have with young people, right? We expect them to come in. They'll go to a 1-year school or a 2-year school. They come out of school and, they're not full production in 2 months, and we're freaking out. And you're like, oh my gosh, guys, we talk about how complicated this stuff is all the time. And here you're expecting somebody to go to maybe a tech school or even out of high school and know what they're talking about. And it's just not realistic, right? Like I think that early stage expectation is so often missed.
Yeah, well, that's just it's too true, right? Because you talk about the mentors, and this, you're right that not everybody should be a mentor, and it could be because of the way that they've been treated in their career at places that they've worked, and it's made them jaded. You don't want that same attitude transferred to somebody that you're trying to grow now.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing and the biggest advantage to the apprenticeship program that we have, ITAC, is that all you really need is the willingness and desire to do it and the passion for it. Hopefully you've run your business in a way that you can financially support it, right? We circle back to profitability.
Yeah, running a good business.
But the apprenticeship program lays it out. That we have the program laid out so you don't have to create it on your own. That's not something that you need to worry about. How am I going to monitor their progress? How am I going to make sure that they're working on what they're supposed to be working on? How am I going to make sure that they're getting the instruction that I want them to? Because that's what the apprenticeship does. It has the framework built for you. So you as a shop owner, you're not an educator, but you want to teach somebody. All you need to do is have the willingness to do it. And the apprenticeship program is going to give you the tools and the framework and the setup to make it happen.
This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. Do you have advice for that shop that's out there that might want to take on something like this, but maybe, you said life gets in the way. We get busy and it's really, really hard to slow down enough to do something like this. Any advice for that shop that's out there that has the desire, but maybe not the time, and they're trying to figure this thing out?
Well, if they have the ability to participate in our program, I would, we have a coordinator that would be more than happy to talk to him. Any of the committee members would be having to talk to him. It's just communication. It's just first step is saying, "Hey, I want to do this," and contact us. We'll have that conversation. We'll explain how it works. We're gonna make it easy for you. The biggest obstacle is just making the commitment. Making the commitment to actually make it work in the first place.
With the apprenticeship that you have laid out, what is the age range that you typically see as an apprentice?
Well, typically they're going to be over 18.
Yep.
They're probably just finishing high school or have finished high school, and they're in a post-secondary automotive program, whether it's a technical school or a community college. That's kind of your target goal, but we have different pathways within the program. We have different pathways depending on where you are. You could be in it when you're still in high school. You could be in it if you've been out of school for a while. Maybe you've completed an automotive program, or maybe you haven't. So there are pathways for somewhat older apprentices that want to get into it. But typically they're going to be in an automotive program post high school. They're going to be attending classes probably during half of the day, and then coming to work for you for the second half of the day. And so it's a work-based learning and a classroom learning combination. And we have hour requirements for you to progress to the next step in the program. And there's a lot more details on all that stuff on our website with our association.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to put a link to the website in the show notes of the podcast. So people that are interested, which I would sure hope after listening to Todd, you are interested in something like this, because it is, I think, so important for our industry to get their hands around the fact that this technician shortage is true. It's not just your area. It's not just your shop. Everybody's struggling with this. And until we start to kind of take a different mindset into how we approach this and look at it that, we've had this same shift in my own company, right? Between going from a recruiting based company many, many years ago to now doing no recruiting and all on the development side of things, and really getting involved with schools, really getting involved with trying to understand the industry at a greater depth. I think you're starting to see this shift, and I think it's really, really needed. Of like, oh no, all of these things I've been reading about in these trade publications about the shortage, and all of the struggles I've had over the years and not being able to find people, and the fact that that's only getting harder now. There's a reason for it, and it's because we've not paid attention to the development side, and we use a line from ASE a lot, which is, it truly is a national problem with local solutions. And I think where we've gone wrong as an industry is it's been really, really easy to sit on your hands and not do something like this apprenticeship program, and not put the time and effort into developing people. But similar to what your transition to the shop was, Todd, I think that's where we need more folks in our industry to kind of put on that CEO hat of their own shop and really change and shift the viewpoint of what their job is from, your job isn't as technical anymore. It is making sure the right people are in the shop, and it should be more proactive in how you're going about it, because if you don't adapt and you don't change, you're just going to continually chase your tail. And I think it's going to get harder and harder to find those quality people as the job gets more advanced. But for my plea to especially the independent shop that's out there, do what Todd did. Get that training, get that business education, understand how to operate your shop, get profitable, and then view your job as getting the right people in the shop to do these things, and treat them really, really well. Because I think at the end of the day, that is the magic recipe to your happiness as a shop owner.
Well, I would echo that 100%. And for me, I could speak from experience. It was hard. It took a while for me to finally admit to myself that I'm not a technician anymore, because that was my identity for so long. And I would probably speak for a lot of us like that to call yourself something else other than a technician felt weird. But now I am a business owner. I'm not a technician. It's not that I wasn't, or I don't support them, or that's the backbone of what we do. But to realize, no, I am a business owner. My job has changed. And so I used to think that I needed to be able to be the best at everything here, and I needed to be able to step in and do whatever anyone couldn't. But my view of myself has changed over the years, and now my job is just to provide the environment and hire the best people. I provide the environment for them to do what they do best, and help them along the way, help them to be the best at what they can do. Because how many shop owners do you hear say, oh, I wish I could find a great technician? Where are they? Where are they? Where are these great technicians that are just standing around on corners, just waiting to be plucked? No, they're all working. They're all working at shops. They all have great jobs. They're all being paid well. No, if you can't say that I am going to go look for somebody, I'm going to train them the way I want to train them. Because even in my own ownership days, I've made hires that I regret. And these are people who have been in the industry. They've learned bad habits. Believe me, everybody, it's much easier to teach somebody the way that you think the industry should be than it is to try to untrain somebody who's been in the industry and has developed some bad habits along the way. So a lot less frustration. And I think in the long run, it's going to make the industry better, not only your business, but all of us.
Man, that was really powerful what you just said there. That entire clip was great. And I think that also is the key to building a good culture, right? Because we talk a lot about that side of it as well, where oftentimes when you see a bad culture in a shop, it's because a shop owner made a desperate hire, a shop manager made a desperate hire, and it just happened to be somebody that could work on cars, but they didn't really question whether they'd fit in with the other people in the shop or not. And it is like putting a magical puzzle piece together and putting a shop staff together. And the more you can view it that way, and that, maybe you don't need that A technician right now. Maybe you need that undercar technician that's really, really good at what they're doing. And I give a shout out to Carm Capriato, who I was just talking to yesterday about the rise of the specialist. He's got his new white paper out that talks about maybe a shift in mindset from technician to specialist. And I think there's just so much good about that, and being able to raise somebody up into a more of that specialist type of position, even if you are a generalist, right? Like maybe you do have specialties in the shop that you're working on. But I say all of that just to say, like, as we're raising people up into this industry, that's where you've got the right mindset, Todd. Like being able to raise them the way that you want to raise them, get them into your culture, really put your arms around them and show them the way, in the way that your mentor did for you back in the day, right? And being able to drive you into just having a positive experience in our industry. I just feel I feel so strongly that we need shops everywhere to be able to kind of take that same approach, have that understanding that you aren't finding that technician on a street corner, and that you got to have some type of intentionality when it comes to developing people. Otherwise, you're just constantly going to be struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how my career would have gone had my first job not been where it was at. Had I not had the mentor that I had, would I still be in the same place that I am now? I don't know. But if you stop long enough to realize where you came from, you have to realize that you're going to be part of that circle of life, and you're going to have to provide that for the next generation that is going to be coming up. And it's not, I'm not saying it's easy, but nothing we do is easy.
No,
it takes an investment of time, takes an investment of resources, that they're going to make mistakes. But if but we know that because we all did. It can't punish them for doing the same thing that we did,
Yeah, we see it all the time, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We see it in a lot of shops, and that's where I think so much has to change in our industry, and it comes down to leadership. It takes more Todds in the world of taking that leap from that technical side to a true leader, and making sure that they're taking care of their shop, that they're getting all of everything in line. And I love the way that you phrased all of that, because I think it's sorely needed throughout our industry. So that has been just phenomenal advice. And as we kind of get close to closing this thing out, which seems crazy that an hour's gone by already, we do have a few fun, quick hitting questions for you, a little get to know you session. First question is, are you a early bird or a night owl?
I'm an early bird.
Early bird. All right.
I used to be a night owl too, but now I'm older, so I'm older.
Operate on those 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep and keep rolling.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
What's your favorite type of food?
Ooh, generally speaking, probably tacos.
Can't go wrong with tacos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very few times I've met a taco I didn't want to eat. That's they're good. They're great. What was your first car?
First car was a 1972 Pontiac Le Mans.
Really?
Which I still own.
What? Are you kidding me?
Nope, I've owned it for 42 years.
Oh my goodness. And still in decent shape?
Yeah. I could, I haven't started it this year yet, but, and so I built I took the original engine out of it and and I built a 68 GTO 400 for it. with a bunch of modifications and a different cam. Back in those days, I thought I was going to be a race car driver. I thought I was going to be building hot rods as a living, but that's not eventually what happened, though.
It worked out all right for you. You've done
Yes.
well for yourself in this life, and it is funny how I thought the same thing. I thought I'd be racing cars coming out of high school, and I did in high school race on like dirt circle tracks, and over time, you just kind of run out of time, and it's an expensive sport, and everything costs a lot of money, right? And so it just it was always tough to realize that dream, but I think a lot of us had that when we were younger, and at least you've got still your first car. I think mine has been in an impound, or it's been scrapped a long time ago. It wasn't worthy of keeping around, but that's pretty cool. Was it in good shape when you got it?
Yeah, well, I got it from the first owner, and just that's another thing to as time goes by. So this was a 1972 Le Mans I bought in 1984. That means it was only 12 years old. So I bought it from the original owners. So I'm only the second owner.
Which in the Northwest, you don't get as much rust out there either, right?
No.
Yeah. We're in the Midwest. 12 years is a long time in the Midwest. It'll tear up some stuff, but also from a shop perspective, way nicer to work on cars out there than it is in the Midwest. The Midwest, all the rust is really, really challenging.
Well, it's weird. In the early days, back in the 80s and 90s, I could always tell when a car came from that area because it would stick out like a sore thumb. But in the 2000s, we actually the state started using salt on roads here in the winter, and so it's changed. Now we're seeing rust, not like back there, but we are seeing a lot more rust on cars that have lived here their whole lives. It's weird because it wasn't like that before at all.
Well, I just remember my buddy George Aarons at ASE and I were at a conference where we were going from Portland to Seattle. And we drove up, and there along the road, we saw this salvage yard. I've always said I'm going to go back to it because we were driving along the highway and there was a salvage yard, and we're looking at some of the old metal in there, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's some stuff in really, really good shape out there that we really don't see in the Midwest. And so there was George and I always joke we're going to make it back out to that salvage yard at some point because it looked like some goodies out there.
Yeah, well, let me know.
Yeah, we'll meet up. We'll have a great time. But Todd, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated getting to know you, getting to know all the folks at NWACA. We'll get Mike back on the show. But it's been such a pleasure, and everybody's so nice out there. Every time we have a conversation, it's just always a lot of fun. So just genuinely appreciate the partnership, appreciate everything you guys do, and really your heart for the industry as a whole. And lastly, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate our conversation here and your involvement with WrenchWay and what we're doing here. And hopefully we're going to be driving a bunch of young people from the classroom into our shops, and I'm super excited about what's going to happen. So I really appreciate you what you've done so far.
Thank you so much. That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you like this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team. WrenchWay is dedicated to promoting and improving careers in the automotive, diesel, and collision industries. In partnership with ASE, we run the ASE Connects community, which empowers shops and dealerships with reliable data, school connections, and industry insights while helping grow the future technician workforce. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.